I sat alone in my new apartment past midnight, staring at the divorce papers I had just filed online. 6 hours earlier, I was still a married man with a wife I loved and a future I truly believed in. But one sentence from Marissa changed everything in an instant. She made her choice, and it was not me. It hurt like hell, but I knew I had done the right thing. This is the story of the night I finally set a boundary and never looked back. Before I dive into what happened that night, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and hit that like button if you have ever had to make a tough choice between love and self-respect. Subscribe if you want to hear more real stories like this one. Now let me take you back to the moment my marriage fell apart. Marissa and I had been married for 3 years. We met at my old company, fell in love over shared lunch breaks and late-night project deadlines, and dated for 2 years before I proposed. Our life together felt simple and peaceful. We rented a small apartment in Portland, Oregon, nothing fancy, but it was ours. I worked as a software engineer, pulling in around $85,000 a year, while Marissa worked as a marketing coordinator, making closer to $50,000. We were not rich, but we were comfortable. More importantly, we had plans. We wanted to buy a house within the next 2 years, maybe start a family after that. I had been saving for 5 years, even before Marissa and I got together. That account had $62,000 in it, every cent, earned through overtime, skipped vacations, and careful budgeting. Marissa knew about it. We talked about it often, about which neighborhoods we liked, what kind of yard we wanted, how many bedrooms we needed. Those conversations felt warm, full of promise. We would cook dinner together on weeknights, go hiking on weekends, and talk about our future like it was a sure thing. I felt safe. I felt happy. I trusted her completely. But there was always something I could not quite put my finger on when it came to her family. Marissa's parents, Richard and Patricia, lived in Eugene, about 2 hours south of us. Her younger brother, Dylan, also lived with them. I tried my best to fit in during family dinners and holiday visits, but I always felt like an outsider looking in. Richard had this habit of asking about my salary, about my savings, about my plans. He would frame it as friendly interest, but it always felt like an audit. Patricia had a way of comparing me to other husbands in the extended family, pointing out who had already bought a house, who had gotten a promotion, who drove a nicer car. It stung, but I kept quiet because I loved Marissa. Dylan was 26 years old and had never held down a job for more than a few months. He would bounce from retail to food service to temp work, always blaming the manager or the customers or the economy. Marissa had a soft spot for him. She would lend him money for rent, for car repairs, for whatever crisis he was facing that month. I never said much about it, because it was her money, her brother. But I noticed the pattern. Dylan never paid her back, and the family never held him accountable. 2 months before everything fell apart, Dylan called Marissa with what he described as a life-changing opportunity. He had met someone named Trevor, supposedly a crypto expert who had an insider deal on a new altcoin. Trevor claimed this coin was going to explode in value, promising returns of 10 times the initial investment within 6 months. Dylan needed $25,000 to get in on the deal, and he was convinced this was his big break. Marissa started mentioning it to me casually at first. She would bring it up over dinner, or while we were watching television, testing the waters. I listened, but I also did my homework. I spent hours researching Trevor, the altcoin, the company behind it. Nothing checked out. Trevor had no verifiable background in finance or cryptocurrency. The altcoin had all the red flags of a pump and dump scheme. The website looked amateur. The white paper was full of buzzwords, but no substance. And there were already warnings on investor forums. When Marissa asked me directly if we could invest, I said no as gently as I could. I explained what I had found, showed her the research, walked her through why this was a terrible risk. She seemed disappointed but accepted it. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Dylan did not give up, and neither did her family. The following week, Richard called me directly. It was a Thursday evening, and I was just finishing up work when my phone rang. Richard's voice was friendly at first, asking about my day about work. Then he shifted gears. He told me Dylan was a talented kid who just needed one good opportunity to get his life on track. He said I had money sitting in the bank doing nothing and that this investment could change Dylan's future. I kept my tone respectful, explaining that the money was earmarked for our house, that it was not just sitting idle. I told him I had serious concerns about the legitimacy of the investment. Richard's tone turned cold. He said family helps family, that this was what people do when they care about each other. I felt my stomach tighten. I was being pressured, guilt-tripped, and cornered. I held my ground but kept it polite, repeating that this was not something I was comfortable with. When I hung up, I felt shaken. Marissa was in the next room and heard the whole conversation. When I told her how uncomfortable it made me, she just sighed and said her dad was worried about Dylan. She did not defend me. She did not tell her father to back off. That silence hurt more than I wanted to admit. Things between Marissa and me grew tense after that. She became distant, less affectionate. We stopped cooking together. She started leaving for work earlier and coming home later. The warmth we used to share felt like a distant memory. I tried to talk to her about it multiple times, but she would brush me off or change the subject. The space between us widened every day, and I felt powerless to stop it. Then came the ambush. One Friday evening, Marissa told me we were going to her parents' house for dinner. I did not think much of it. I assumed it would be the usual uncomfortable small talk and forced smiles. But when we walked through the door, I realized this was not a casual dinner. Richard, Patricia, Dylan, and Trevor were all sitting in the living room. There was a laptop set up on the coffee table with slides and charts already loaded. This was a planned presentation, and I was the target audience. Dylan launched into his pitch with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed it a dozen times. He walked me through graphs, talked about market trends, threw around terms like blockchain and decentralized finance. Trevor chimed in with stories about early Bitcoin investors and how this altcoin was the next big thing. I sat there silent, feeling my jaw tighten. I had been set up. This was an ambush designed to pressure me into saying yes. When Dylan finally finished, Richard leaned forward and asked what I thought. He said this was a chance to help Dylan get on his feet, to be part of something bigger. I took a breath and kept my voice calm. I thanked them for the presentation, but said I was not comfortable with this investment. I explained again that it was high risk, that there was no proven track record, and that our savings had a specific purpose. I tried to be respectful, but I was clear. The room went cold. Dylan looked crushed. Richard's face turned red, his eyes narrowing. Patricia said something that cut deeper than anything else that night. She looked at me and said, "We thought you cared about this family, Quinn." I glanced at Marissa, waiting for her to say something to defend me, to tell them this was not fair. But she just stared at her hands. She said nothing. That silence broke something inside me. The drive home was suffocating. Neither of us spoke. When we finally got back to the apartment, I asked her why she did not tell me about the meeting beforehand. That is when she exploded. She said she knew I would say no if she told me so. She figured showing me in person might change my mind. I could not believe what I was hearing. She had orchestrated an ambush because she did not trust me to make the right decision on my own. The argument escalated quickly. Marissa said Dylan really needed this, that he had been struggling for years. I said giving him money for a scam was not going to help him. She accused me of being negative, of refusing to believe in her brother. I reminded her, this was our house money, our future. She shot back that it was my money, that I always made that clear. That stung. I told her we were married, that it was our money, but I deserved a say in how we used it. She said her family thought I was selfish. That word hung in the air like poison. I tried to stay calm. I told her I loved her, but I would not throw away our future for a risky investment that could destroy us financially. She did not respond. She just walked into the bedroom and locked the door. I slept on the couch that night, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over. It was the first time in our marriage we went to bed angry without resolving things. I told myself it would blow over. I was wrong. The next 2 weeks were torture. Marissa avoided me completely. She would leave for work before I woke up and come home after I had gone to bed. We stopped talking. We stopped touching. It felt like I was living with a stranger. I tried to reach out, tried to start conversations, but she would give me one-word answers or just ignore me altogether. Then the calls started. Patricia called me at work, her voice dripping with accusation. She told me I was tearing the family apart, that I was being selfish and cruel. Dylan sent me a long text message blaming me for blocking his future, saying I did not understand what it was like to struggle. Richard sent an email with the subject line, "A real man supports his family." Each message felt like a punch to the gut. I felt surrounded, attacked from every angle, and Marissa knew about it. She had to, but she did nothing to stop them. One night I tried to reach for her hand while we sat on the couch. She pulled away. I asked if we were okay. She looked at me with empty eyes and said she did not know. She said she thought she married someone who would be there for her family. I told her I was there for her, but I would not make bad financial decisions under pressure. She said maybe we wanted different things. Those words echoed in my mind for days. I could not sleep. I could not focus at work. I kept hoping she would come around, that she would see reason, but hope was running out. 3 weeks after the ambush, everything came to a head. It was a Wednesday night. Marissa came home after a long phone call with her mother. I could hear her voice in the hallway before she even opened the door. When she walked in, her face was set with determination. She sat down across from me and said we needed to talk. My heart started pounding. I closed my laptop and gave her my full attention. She told me Dylan had until Friday to come up with the money or he would lose the opportunity. I opened my mouth to respond, but she cut me off. She said her parents were putting in $10,000. Dylan had scraped together $5,000, and we just needed to contribute $15,000. She said it so matter-of-factly, like it was already decided. I felt my chest tighten. I asked if she was asking me to agree to this. She said yes, and that she needed my answer now. I told her my answer had not changed. I said no. She stood up, her voice shaking. She told me that if I would not agree, she would take the money from our joint account anyway. I stared at her in disbelief. I asked her if she was serious. She said her name was on the account too, that she had every right. I reminded her that marriage was about making decisions together, not taking unilateral action. She said I made a unilateral decision when I refused to listen to her family. I tried one more time to reason with her. I told her this was not about the money. It was about respect and partnership. She started crying, saying this was her brother, her family, and if I loved her, I would do this. In that moment, I saw the truth clearly. This was not about the investment. This was about Marissa choosing her family over me, over us, over our marriage. She was willing to destroy our financial future and our trust because her family demanded it. I looked her in the eye and told her the truth. I said if she took that money without my agreement, I would consider it the end of our marriage. She asked if I was threatening her. I said no, I was telling her the truth. I would not stay in a marriage where I was not respected as an equal partner. She stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed her purse and keys. She said maybe we should not be married then. She walked out the door, saying she was going to her parents and not to wait up. The door slammed shut, and I stood there in the middle of the living room shaking. For a few minutes I could not move. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Then, clarity hit me like a wave. If I did not act now, this would be my life forever. I would always be pressured by her family. My boundaries would never matter. I would never be an equal partner in my own marriage. I sat down and opened my laptop. I searched for how to file for divorce in Oregon. I read through the process, the requirements, the steps. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. But I knew what I had to do. Over the next 3 hours, I methodically took control of my life. I logged into our joint account and transferred $31,000, exactly half of the savings, into my personal account. I documented every email, every text message, every voicemail from her family. I found a divorce attorney who offered emergency consultations and scheduled a call. I called my best friend Jake and explained everything. He told me I could stay in his guest room for as long as I needed. By midnight, I had an Uber on the way. I packed a suitcase with clothes, my laptop, and a few personal items. I left Marissa's keys on the kitchen table, along with a note. I kept it simple. I wrote that I had transferred my half of the savings and that the rest was hers to do with as she wished. I told her I had contacted an attorney and would be filing for divorce in the morning. I explained this was not about the money, it was about respect, partnership, and boundaries. I said she chose her family over our marriage, and I could not stay in a relationship where I was not valued. I wished her well and signed my name. I stood in the doorway of our apartment. One last time. Memories flashed through my mind. Moving in together, decorating for our first Christmas lazy Sunday mornings. But all of that felt like it belonged to a different lifetime. I closed the door behind me and did not look back. The next morning, I met with the attorney, Laura Simmons. She reviewed the documents I had prepared and told me I had a strong case for irreconcilable differences. Because we had no children and no shared property, just a rental apartment, the process would be straightforward. By noon, the divorce petition was filed with Multnomah County Court. I felt hollow, but also strangely relieved. I had taken control. I had set a boundary and followed through. I blocked Patricia, Richard, and Dylan on my phone and social media. I kept contact with Marissa, limited to communication through my attorney. Marissa received the divorce papers on Friday afternoon. My phone started ringing immediately. I did not answer. She sent dozens of text messages. She was shocked, angry, pleading. She said we could talk about this, that she did not think I was serious, that I should not give up on us. I did not respond. She even showed up at my office, but security did not let her in. She sent a long email blaming me for abandoning her, for giving up too easily. But buried in that email was something interesting. She admitted she had not taken the money from the joint account. When she saw that I had already transferred my half out, she panicked. She realized I was serious. Without my contribution, there was not enough money for Dylan's investment. Dylan lost his mind. He blamed Marissa for not controlling me. Richard and Patricia were furious with me. But I also sensed they were disappointed in Marissa for letting things get this far. The family dynamic started to crack under the weight of their own dysfunction. 2 months later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance what happened with the crypto investment. Dylan found another way to get the money. He took out a high-interest personal loan and threw everything into the altcoin. For about a month, the value seemed to climb. Dylan was convinced he had made the right call. Then, the bottom fell out. The coin crashed completely. Trevor disappeared, deleted his social media, stopped answering calls. It turned out the whole thing was a pump and dump scheme designed to scam people, exactly like Dylan. He lost everything and was left with a loan he could not pay back. Richard and Patricia had to bail him out, draining a significant portion of their retirement savings in the process. Marissa called me from an unknown number one afternoon. She was crying. She told me I had been right, that she should have listened. She said she was sorry. I listened, but I did not comfort her. I told her I was sorry it happened, but it did not change anything between us. She said she should have chosen us, should have put our marriage first. I agreed. I told her yes, she should have. The call ended there. I felt sad for her, but I also felt vindicated. I had protected myself from a disaster that could have destroyed me financially and emotionally. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Oregon has a mandatory waiting period, so it took time. But eventually the papers were signed and filed. I started the process of rebuilding my life, one small step at a time. I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Helen Martinez, who helped me process the betrayal and grief. I learned how to set healthy boundaries and recognize red flags in relationships. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during the final months of my marriage. Jake became my anchor, reminding me I was not alone. I threw myself into work and earned a promotion I had been chasing for over a year. I picked up new hobbies, joining a rock climbing group, where I met people who had no connection to my past. I took my first solo road trip down the California coast, something I had always wanted to do, but never made time for. I was not in a hurry to date. I needed time to heal, to rediscover who I was outside of that marriage. My savings account still had $31,000, and I kept adding to it every month. 6 months after the divorce, I put a down payment on a small condo. It was mine, completely mine. I decorated it the way I wanted. I made financial decisions without anyone questioning me or pressuring me. It felt like freedom. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Looking back now, I realize how much that experience taught me. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership, not an obligation to an extended family. If your partner does not respect your boundaries, the relationship cannot survive. Financial decisions should always be mutual agreements, not ultimatums delivered under pressure. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is self-respect. I learned to recognize the red flags I had ignored. When a partner does not defend you in front of their family, when they pressure you to violate your own values, when they choose everyone else over you, those are signs the relationship is broken. Sometimes loving someone is not enough if they do not respect you. Walking away took more strength than staying ever would have. I do not regret my decision. It was painful at first, agonizing, even, but now I have peace. I learned the importance of setting clear boundaries from the beginning and communicating expectations honestly. In future relationships, I will pay close attention to how a partner handles family pressure and whether they prioritize our partnership. I am 33 now, sitting in my condo on a quiet Sunday morning. Sunlight streams through the windows. I have a cup of coffee in my hand and know where I need to be. This is a kind of peace I never had during the last year of my marriage. I do not know where Marissa is or what she is doing, and that is okay. Some relationships teach you what you do not want, and I am grateful for the lesson, even though it hurt. I still believe in love, in marriage, in partnership, but now I know what to look for and what to avoid. I am ready when the right person comes along, but I am also happy being alone. I am whole on my own. That night, when I walked out and filed for divorce, was not the end of my life. It was the beginning of knowing my worth, and that made all the difference. So let me ask you, have you ever had to choose between someone you loved and your own self-respect? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about love loss and finding yourself again. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that set you free. Take care of yourself, and remember, you deserve to be respected in every relationship you are in.